Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well and having a good day so far. So recently we were out and about in this truck. We had it parked somewhere, and when we went to go back home, we went to turn the truck on but it wouldn't start. So we thought it was a battery problem. We got a new battery. I was able to turn the truck on, but when I started driving, that's when I realized the battery wasn't charging. So we were lucky enough to make it back home, but all my suspicions went to a bad alternator, because like you guys know, the alternator charges the battery, and when it malfunctions, all sorts of issues pop up. Worst of all, a failing alternator can get you stranded next to the road, or in my case, in and out parking lot. So today I'm going to show you guys how to test and replace your alternator. So let's get started. Now, how do you know your vehicle alternator is bad? The good thing is usually the alternator gives you some signs to warn you that it is going bad. Like you might see the battery warning light is on. You might also notice the headlights and the dashboard lights are dimmer than usual. You might also experience some problems with accessories like power locks, electric windows, windshield wipers, and radio, because when voltage fluctuates, what happens is the computer cuts the power on non-essential stuff like the accessories. And you also might hear like strange noises coming from under the hood, or smell very unpleasant electrical or burning smell. And if you have a hard start, like if you hear a clicking sound when you turn the key in the ignition, then you know you have an alternator problem. Lastly, you also will have problems with battery, because a failing alternator won't be able to sufficiently charge your battery, so your battery will either be weak or completely dead. If you jump start the car and the car dies immediately after jump start, you know it's an alternator problem, not a battery problem. So now that we went over all the signs for a bad alternator, now I'm going to test my alternator to make sure once and for all we have a bad alternator. Now, if you have a battery gauge, that's good to see your charging system, but I know not all cars have that. So just get your battery tester, and we're going to test our battery to make sure we have a nice healthy battery. So get your tester and turn it to DC and check our voltage. Your battery should read about 12 to 13. Mine looks pretty good. Now we're going to test the charging cable going to the alternator. It should have the same voltage as the battery. Alright, looks good. Next, we're going to test the signal wires, so turn the ignition on. Now unplug the alternator connector, and we're going to test the two signal wires. They should have about 12 volts each. Alright, these are testing good, so plug it back in. So now that we tested the battery, the cables, and the signal wires, and they all tested good, so our next step is to turn the truck on and test if the alternator is charging the battery. Alright guys, you can see my alternator is not charging at all. It is recording 12 volts. A healthy alternator should record at least 14 volts. So let's turn the truck off and start replacing this alternator. Now, our first step to replace this alternator, we need to disconnect the battery, so make sure you disconnect the positive and the negative cables. Just set your battery cables to the side. Next, we're going to remove the electrical connectors. Now set it aside. Now I'm going to remove the belt. You don't have to take it completely off, just take it off the alternator. Alright guys, so lastly we're going to remove the alternator bolts that connected to the bracket. So just use your tool, and I'm going to start from the bottom ones. We have two on the bottom and one on the top. At this point, make sure you are supporting the alternator with the other hand, and just take off this last bolt. Alright guys, so with the alternator off, we are officially halfway done. This is an original Ford part, so I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to save it and maybe I can rebuild it later. But for now, I'm going to install the brand new Bosch alternator that I just purchased. Now I went with the Bosch alternator because they make theirs 100% new and they got really high reviews. So I highly recommend it. I'll make sure to link it in the description box below if you guys are interested. But now let's just go ahead and install it. Now align your alternator and start by reinstalling the alternator bolts. Just get all three of them in first and then we'll tighten them down. Now reconnect your electrical. Next, install and tighten down the cable. Now I'm going to reinstall my belt by looping it over every pulley according to the routing diagram. Now I'm going to reconnect my battery and we'll test the new alternator. Alright guys, now I'm going to turn on the truck so we can test the new alternator. A good alternator should charge your battery at about 14 volts. The new one is definitely recording 14 volts, so we are good to go. Alright guys, so that's a wrap. Please don't ignore strange sounds in your vehicle that you're not familiar with. Definitely get it checked out because your vehicle is trying to tell you something is wrong. That's their language, smells and sounds. And definitely get yourself a good quality alternator because nothing is worse than doing the job 2 times because of a bad part. We normally like to do our work on the vehicles ourselves because shops, they normally overcharge and they're not always honest, unfortunately. So replacing the alternator is literally one of the simplest repair that you can do on your vehicle. If you have the right tools, within an hour you can swap it out yourself and you can keep your money in your pocket where it belongs. But that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope that you all enjoyed this video. Please, if you did, thumbs it up, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Bye!